Department of Justice has said it would restart its hate crime inquiry into the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. Pretty high bar to reach before bringing that case, Ed.
You used high bar. I was going to use steep hill, but yes, it is. And the Justice Department has asked Florida officials to hold on to all the evidence just in case they do decide to pursue charges. That, of course, has set up some concern because this means that Mr. Zimmerman doesn't get back, for example, the gun that was used in this situation, which he was going to get back now that he was acquitted. A lot of people concerned that the Justice Department needlessly holding on to this evidence, but they're going to need it potentially if they are able to find civil rights violations, which is really the only avenue they can pursue. Holder saying this is notable. There are 23 states that have these so-called stand your ground laws. But let's face it, Holder is probably in the midst of his last calendar year as Attorney General. He's likely or expected to leave the Justice Department in the coming months. There's not much the federal government can do other than say they don't necessarily like these laws that states have passed. And, others have said this week that, if you're upset about the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman situation, perhaps you push for change in gun control law or in gun laws across the country. I heard several people say that this week, that perhaps that's the spirit in which this should be carried on. But attempts to seriously consider a change in gun laws up on Capitol Hill are going nowhere. They've pretty much faltered since the debate pretty much fizzled out back in April and May. And so we'll see. And there wasn't much said, among lawmakers this week about this. There were a few that gathered in New York City to call upon the Justice Department to do this review. But beyond that, we'll just have to wait and see. I think the president's statement was notable. He said, look, a jury has spoken. We have to respect the verdict. Everyone, please behave peacefully and move on.
For the most part, they have, right. Indeed. It was rather unusual, was it not, Julie, that one of the jurors who acquitted George Zimmerman spoke out anonymously on CNN.
It was, and even more notable was what she said, which was basically that in the end, George Zimmerman was justified. And then you saw almost all of the other jurors come out with a statement not long thereafter saying this does not reflect what we thought as a jury or what we thought as individuals. Four of the others took the time to distance themselves from those remarks because really it was a sort of a moral judgment on what is, as both John and Ed have pointed out, really an emotional case that was very confusing in its legal ramifications as well. And what was interesting about the stand your ground aspect is that, it didn't really come up very much during the trial. It didn't come up. George Zimmerman didn't ask for a stand your ground hearing, which he could have done after his arrest. And it wasn't in the jurors' instructions, what that meant for them and how they had to look at that. So you can't say it wasn't a factor in what their decision was, but it's not really clear how big of a role it played. And so that makes it even more notable that the Justice Department now that Eric Holder is, calling attention to these things. And it is really a point of contention. You see some folks occupying Rick Scott's office in Florida trying to get him to get rid of this law.